Hey, and we are live here to talk about tonight's episode of Arrow, which just finished airing, called Next of Kin, Season 6, Episode 3. And I have a new guest joining us tonight. We have Jordan. Jordan, say hi.
Hello.
So, Jordan is the host of a podcast. Jordan, what podcast do you co host?
It's called Multiverse Musings. We talk about all stuff related to DC Comics, including Arrow.
Yeah. So Jordan is sort of a bit of a resident expert when it comes to the comic side. He's gonna be like, no, I'm not. When it comes to like the comic side of things and the DC side of things. So I think I thought it'd be really fun to bring him on tonight as the roles in this got a little, we got to stray a little bit out of comic territory here, but also play with some like innate comic moments within that. I don't know. We're going to get into it, but I want to start us off first with a chance for us to rate the episode. So, Jordan, what would you rate the episode on a scale from 1 to 5? 1 being like terrible, wasting my time. 5 being like one of the best episodes of Arrow that I have ever seen. What would you rate it?
I'm gonna give this episode a 4. I was pretty impressed with this episode.
Okay, a 4. You know what? I'm with you. And I'm usually, I can be a little bit of a grump when it comes to like critiquing shows. But this episode was so solid. I really loved it. We got to play with a lot of, I don't know, I want to say like new concepts, new tableaus, just if nothing else, there's the newness of seeing Diggle as the Green Arrow, which, yes, I know we have seen that before, but getting to see it in this overt and drawn out of context was, I think, really fun. Definitely under 4 there. Loved the interpersonal relationships going on. Loved the villain-ness this week. Really loving Agent Watson as well. There was a lot of really fun moments, and the action scenes were great. So I don't know. I'm already getting into my highlights. So let me come back to that. What are the highlights? What were the moments that we've just watched this episode for the first time. When you finished watching it, what were the scenes that were still sort of in your mind?
Well, basically everything with Diggle as Green Arrow. I mean, that, as you said, this was a big status quo change. I think there's really a lot of status quo changes this season with Oliver being a father. But I think this is an example
Yeah.
of one of them. Diggle stepping into that role. So seeing that, I love seeing his sort of development because he started out the episode where he was struggling, and then we saw why he got better with that. But and then we saw what was helping him with his tremor thing at the end. So that was another highlight for me. The end teaser there
Yeah.
with Diggle. But yeah, all the stuff with him was a real highlight for me. And I got to point out, just because I'm a big Smallville fan, him wearing the shades with the Green Arrow costume was a big callback for me to Smallville,
Yeah.
where Green Arrow always wore the shades. So.
Absolutely. It looks like a lot of the chat agrees with you as well. Stormy says loved so much of this episode. Gabriella says Diggle and the final scene just in general. And the tennis balls. Stormy says Felicity stands out to me as always. We're gonna get to that. That was great tonight. There were some great moments there. And that's another reason Jordan's a great one to bring on for tonight, because we had differences in predictions of what was going to happen. Neither of us was exactly right, but we'll get to that. Christy Mitchell says, I really love this episode. So I'm seeing a lot of positivity for this episode. So I think a lot of people are kind of with us on that. This is really up there on the scale. So we'll save negatives to the end because or at least for a little longer, because I don't really have too many negatives from tonight. But I wanted to get into, so we talked a little bit about seeing Diggle as the Green Arrow, but that end scene though, did you see that coming? What did you think helped Diggle get over his issues? And are you happy that this storyline is quite obviously going to continue on longer?
Yeah, well, I actually I was a little bit surprised because when he mentioned to Dinah that he didn't have the tremor anymore, I was wondering, are they really going to just hand wave it that quickly? And then we saw that last scene. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that adds something to it, and I was happy that we got that. And I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah. I'm curious. So I mentioned before, you know quite a lot about the original comics for this and for a lot of the DC comic storylines. Does the storyline that we saw tonight, how does that tie into some of the storylines we've seen in the comics, just in general in terms of the villains that we saw tonight, but also more specifically in terms of Green Arrow's storyline. Have we seen Green Arrow struggle with this kind of injury before? And then I know, and I don't know a lot about this, but I do know that there's been a moment in the comics where Diggle had to fill in for the Green Arrow as the Green Arrow, and then a villain develops a vendetta against Green Arrow / Diggle because of it. Do you know anything about that, and do you see any of that going forward?
I'm actually not familiar with that. I know that Connor Hawke
Okay.
has been the Green Arrow in the comics before. In terms of
Right.
Diggle, because Diggle was an original character of the show that they later introduced in the comics.
Right.
And in terms, I've read the entire Green Arrow Rebirth run so far, and Diggle's had a pretty small role in that so far. But I don't know. I'm not familiar with the with the storyline that you mentioned.
Okay, so what I'm talking about is, and this is secondhand knowledge, but there's a villain coming later this season on Arrow called Richard Dragon or
Yes.
Ricardo Dragon, and I'm told that he sees somebody else. I think it was Diggle, or maybe people are just hypothesizing that in this incarnation it's going to be Diggle. He sees somebody else as the Green Arrow do something that he doesn't like, develops a vendetta against the Green Arrow, and goes after him because of it. And people are theorizing that it's Diggle, maybe, or maybe it wasn't Diggle. I don't know.
Okay.
But does that sound more familiar to you?
Yeah, well, what I will say is that I'm still not familiar with that storyline, but in terms of Richard
Okay.
Dragon, it looks like the show is doing something a little bit different with him because I know in
Okay.
the comics he's been sort of yeah he's trained certain characters in that's one of the things he's famous for is he's trained a lot of characters in the DC universe,
Mm-hmm.
and here in the show, if I read the description correctly, when the casting was first announced, it looks like he's going to be more of like a crime boss
Yeah.
on Arrow.
Okay, I'm getting some information here in the chat. Stormy says Diggle kills one of Dragon's men, and that's how this happens. Maybe that's what we found out. There's some it's in some way paralleling what went on with Dragon in the comics, but I don't know exactly. And Stormy's also pointing out that Diggle's addiction story might be similar to a story Rory, not
Roy.
Roy, sorry, that Roy had in the comics. Roy, the former Red Arrow Arsenal character we had a few seasons ago. Do you see that happening?
Oh yeah, definitely with that, and we got some of that when Roy was actually on the show with him with the Mirakuru. I felt like that was their way of doing the him being a drug addict because in the comics he was a drug addict, and so I feel
Yeah.
like that was Arrow's version of that. But I feel like there is a parallel with Diggle now too. We'll have to see where the storyline goes and what exactly he's injected himself with. But I definitely see the parallel they're pointing out there. That's definitely.
Yeah. Now I wanna talk to you something else as we start to talk about some of the other characters. I was happy on your behalf, I guess. Um, in the opening scene, we opened on something that's a bit of an iconic moment, if it's okay to use that term for this. I think it is. For the show, because it's not something we've seen a lot on this show, which was a version of Green Arrow and Black Canary working together. Now, I know you're quite a fan of Green Arrow and Black Canary in the comics. Were you happy to see kind of a nod to that in this show? Did that sort of satisfy that itch?
It did. It did. I mean, it's still not exactly what I'd want to see, but I definitely noticed that in this episode because throughout the episode, really, we got a lot of interaction between Diggle and Dinah because it was sort of the two of them. She was the one who was sort of walking him through the process of being
Yeah.
Green Arrow now, and it definitely gave me some vibes from what I like to see from Green Arrow and Black Canary in the comics. So even though it's not ideal for exactly how I want the show to do that, still seeing that, and it is a version of that. So yes, thank you. I was happy about that.
I thought it was pretty cool. I think there's been some my opinion on that. I think there've been some hits and misses with their attempts at the Green Arrow and Black Canary, and I thought that this was a really cool nod to that with two characters that have already worked quite well together before. So I thought that was pretty fun, and I thought it was a great way to add sort of that familiarity to a storyline that's otherwise kind of breaking out of what we've seen in the comics before. So getting into that, let's slide away from the action for a bit and get into some of the interpersonal stuff we saw tonight.
Oh boy.
Now, I don't know about you, but when I was in middle school and high school, math tutors didn't look like Felicity Smoke, so I was a bit jealous.
Oh man, I would
One,
have loved math if that was the case.
yeah, yeah. If Felicity Smoke was my math tutor, catch me majoring in math forever. um, so what did you think of that storyline where we got to see, we had kind of seen the Green Arrow go at it alone when it comes to his sort of I'm going to be Oliver the dad and take care of William. I mean, he had Reza, but he'd been going at it alone and making sure William had transitioned into this alone. And we'd seen those moments before where he had invited Felicity to dinner, and she was like, "No, I think we need to make sure William's adjusted by himself." And now we kind of break free from that tonight. What did you think of those scenes? Were you surprised by that return? Were you like, "Oh, I kind of expected it at this point. This made sense." What were your thoughts on that?
Well, in terms of her tutoring him, I thought that was great because earlier on in the episode, when William kept complaining about his homework to Oliver, I was like, doesn't Oliver work with two geniuses in Felicity and
Right?
Curtis? Can't one of them help him? And then and then I sent a tweet about that, and then right after the commercial break, that's exactly what Oliver did. And so I thought that was great, and I thought it was cool to see. I thought it was cool. I really think that William is adding a new dynamic to the show that I really like. Seeing Oliver as a father, and
Yeah.
seeing now Felicity brought into the fold in terms of that. I really enjoyed seeing that as well.
Yeah, it was pretty cute. It takes a lot for scenes to kind of give me the warm fuzzies. I'm not really the warm fuzzies type of person, and that scene gave me the warm fuzzies. In addition to jealousy, because I want Felicity to tutor me in math as well, but it's fine. It's fine. William can catch a lucky break on that. And then at the end, Felicity gets the key to Oliver's apartment. All of that. I thought that was really cute and really well timed. Christy in the chat says this is the first episode where I really enjoyed William. Gabriella says it felt organic. I think there was a lot here where this felt like it was time. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't pushed into the first episode of the season. It happened when it naturally needed to happen for both Oliver and for William and for Felicity. So I was pretty happy with that. And I'm so excited about her tech company with Curtis. What are your thoughts on their tech company? And did you catch the little Oracle nod?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. That's two episodes in a row now that we've got a Batman related reference, which as a Batman fan, it just makes me so happy every time we get one of those. So, and it was the second, even just the second Oracle reference we got in the show because when Felicity first got her code name, Oliver made a reference to Oracle as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cute as well. And I'm enjoying the Batman references because now I know you'll know this because you were at Dragon Con as well. In one of the panels, the cast was there, and we had Willa who plays Thea, we had Echo Kellum who plays Curtis, and Curtis happened to mention that there would be some Gotham-y bits this season, and all the cast was quite fast to hush him on that. But we've kind of seen that a bit now. I'm just going to toss you this question, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this because I've seen this kind of discussed a bit on Twitter and social media, and there's some I don't know how far of a reach this is, but do you think there could be a crossover with Gotham or a more prominent Batman reference on Arrow?
I'm curious because I remember when Echo said that at that panel at Dragon Con, and I remember thinking when Oliver made that first reference last episode, I remember thinking, I wonder if that's all Echo was referring to, or if there's more. In terms of crossover with Gotham, I mean, it's always possible I mean, the Arrowverse is explored a lot with multiverses, and we could see the Gotham be a Earth set in the multiverse, so it's certainly possible. I don't think there's a great chance that that's actually going to happen. I know David Mazouz, who plays Bruce Wayne on Gotham, he's expressed interest in that happening. I think he's mentioned that he'd love to see a crossover with the Flash. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd be down for it. But I don't think there's a high probability that that would happen.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a reach with the way they've structured the universes so far and, with licensing on different shows and stuff. But there have been a couple references. Just jumping back into the chat, Gabriella says it was a nice way to introduce Felicity and William with some bonding. Amanda says, you're gorgeous. I'm sure she's talking about you, Jordan.
Thank you. No, I doubt it.
Stormy says, I loved seeing Oliver and Felicity mentioning how badass of an aunt Thea would be. Thea would be a fantastic aunt. And I really feel like we've missed Thea this season. And I mean, she wasn't around that much last season. And I'd love to see her kind of come out of a coma and come back. What are you thinking on that? Are you expecting that to happen anytime soon? Is there anything you know about the Thea Speedy storyline in the comics that might be informing what's going on with this coma storyline or how they could tie it in?
Sure. Well, what I will say is that this kind of is one of my nitpicks with this episode. I wish that we get a little more focus on Oliver struggling with his sister being in a coma. Like it feels like they're not. I mean, Oliver referenced it once in this episode, but I wish they put a little bit more focus on that. I do think that we'll see Thea come out of the coma at some point this season. Probably not too far into the season because I know that Will Holland again has a limited contract like she did last season, but she is contracted for a certain number of episodes of the season. So I'm sure we will see her come out of that coma not too far from now. In terms of the comics right now, because Thea is not Oliver's sister in the comics. In fact, in current continuity, he has a younger sister named Emiko,
Okay.
who's his half sister. Um, and she has just recently, probably a few months back, adopted the Red Arrow persona. So I wonder
Okay.
maybe if Thea comes back, maybe she will rejoin the team, but as Red Arrow instead of as a Speedy. So I mean that's just me
Yeah.
speculating, but
Yeah, that would be really interesting. And if anybody doesn't want spoilers, close your ears for like 30 seconds, and then I swear spoilers will be over. But we do already know that Thea will be awake, will have some scenes with William, but it won't be until at or right after the crossover. So we will have a couple more episodes with her. Okay, spoilers are over. You all can unplug your ears if you didn't want spoilers. Um, let's see. Amanda says Rick Gonzalez spoiled today on Instagram. Oh, yeah, what I just mentioned. Okay, if you were listening for spoilers, that's exactly there. Amanda's got it with more specifics and better information than I have. But exactly what I just said about Thea. I want to, okay, there's probably a couple more comments I have to make about this episode, but I want to make sure we have a chance to talk about that promo for next week because I do know the promo for next week had a couple things that I think you might be a little bit interested in. Now, did you get a chance to see the promo?
I did, yeah.
Okay, what did you think about that?
Well, I enjoyed the promo. I'm excited because I always hesitate with the promos because I'm like, how much do I really want to know about next episode? But I always give in and I watch them.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, okay, so in the promo, we got to see Black Siren is going to be returning, and we got to see what I think and this might still be somewhat of a theory, but we got to see a bit of, okay, I think you might have cut out for a second. We got to see a bit of Slade's son, I think. Did you see him there, or
I
was
didn't
that
catch that. I didn't catch that. That must you. It was
okay?
like quick.
I might have been imagining things. We do know that Black Siren's returning. In the
Yes.
promo, we got to see her in a couple different wigs. We get to see that Diggle is still the Green Arrow next week, which is exciting because I wasn't quite done with that storyline, and obviously they aren't either. So I'm pretty excited to see what's coming up going forward. So, well, I guess my general question then would be, what are you wanting to see going forward? What storyline are you sort of like, I'm really excited for this scene or for this character to meet that character? What are you wanting to see in the next
Well, it
few
was
episodes?
certainly with Black Siren in the promo. I mean, I think Katie Cassidy has just done a phenomenal job as Black Siren, and I'm really excited to see where that goes and to see her back. Because now it's been she wasn't in this episode. Was she in last episode? She
Last week I don't think so. I think it was only in the pilot.
It was
I don't
only the
know. I
pilot.
might be
Okay.
imagining things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. So it'll be good to see her back again. And she killed that guy. I'm excited to see what she's up to. She's up to some mischief. So we'll see what
Yeah.
that's about. In terms of you brought up Slade's son, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for that storyline because like that is. And this is one of my other nitpicks with this episode. So far this season, I haven't been real impressed with the villains. You said you liked the villain this episode. Personally, I didn't dislike her, but there was nothing to her for me.
I
Um,
thought it was really fun. The reason why I think that she was fun is because she carried something a little bit different than what we've usually seen with villains, which is just a lot of, somebody comes in with a giant gun or a giant meta ability or something like that, and the team has to sort of outgun them. And with this woman, she brought in tech, she brought in a team, and she had a little bit of an aurora, what's the term, aura vibe, whatever, of this self presence where she seemed so unshaken at first that it was pretty ominous.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I like that about her, and I love a good techie villain, and I love a good female villain. So I guess I've just been pleased to see techie villains and female villains represented this
Okay.
season. Also, I'm getting some correction in the comments. Thank you guys. You are so smart. Amanda says the guy Black Siren kissed in the promo actually ended up dead and is not Slade's son. So I may
Oh,
not be
that's who you're
Slade's
referring
son
to.
next week.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Stormy says Black Siren is going to Black Widow, the guy she hooks up with. Someone even calls her Black Widow in the promo, which makes me laugh. So little Marvel nod there. Some men are gonna end up dead. Can't complain. um so yeah, I'm excited for those as well. And I think I cut you off. What were you saying before I jumped
Oh
into
no,
the
you're
comments?
good. I was just saying that the thing I'm most excited about, probably all season, really, is the Deathstroke two-parter that's coming up because
Yeah.
Deathstroke is my favorite character that's been in the Arrowverse, to be honest. And it's just to see what they're gonna do with him. I mean, it's been so good having him back on the show now in the season 5 finale, then seeing him again in the pilot, and I'm really excited to see him get the focus again in that two-parter and to see what they do with Joe. I don't know if they're gonna go in the direction of the comics and have him become Jericho. I really don't know what they're
Yeah.
planning to do with him, but I'm whatever it is, I can't wait for that. And like I was saying, I've been a little bit disappointed with the villains so far this season, with both what was her name, Onyx this episode, and also with Alex Faust, this other new guy. But
Hmm.
I'm excited. Slade, he's not going to be in such a villainous role, it looks like, as he was back in season
Yeah.
2, of course. But to see him again, I can't wait, really.
Yeah. And Anatoly, what are your thoughts on him this season?
Oh, him I really like. That would be the exception. I loved him and Black Siren, I guess. So I've liked 2 out of the 4 villains they've had really so far this season because I love Anatoly because here's the thing with Anatoly, it's like every time we see him now, it's so heartbreaking because you've seen this. They played the long game with him becoming a villain because you saw him be
Yeah.
a friend. He was Oliver's friend, and especially last season, you saw so much of that in the flashbacks, and to see how this progressed to a point where they're so confrontational now, it really is heartbreaking every time we see him.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things I was also going to mention, since we brought up Anatoly, is for those who are fans of Anatoly or the actor who plays him, actually the Sunday night live at I think 8 p.m. Eastern, I and the guys of DC Action Hour will be interviewing him on YouTube on the Super Geeked Up channel. All that information will be on my Twitter at the time. It's the same channel I've been on a couple Sunday nights before. But he's going to be on. We're going to get to ask him some questions. So send me your questions if you have questions for the actor playing Anatoly. His name's David. And I'm pretty excited about that because he's been one of my favorite villains so far this season and in Arrow overall. Like you said, they've kind of played the long game with him. And I think it'll be really fun to talk to the actor because of that. So
That's awesome.
tune in if you are interested in that. Amanda says she'll be sure to watch. Yes, I'm excited to literally watch while also being on it. um, well, we're already a couple minutes over time, but that's because there was a lot of good thoughts to be shared. And if anybody wants to ask you some more geeky comment questions about DC, where should they go?
Hey, well, first off, thanks so much for having me. If you want to keep up with me, though, you can find me and we can talk all about DC, about Arrow. I'm on Twitter and on Instagram at BatFanJordanV. And of course, my podcast as well that you mentioned, Multiverse Musings.
Yes. Highly recommend. If you have a question about DC, he probably knows the answer. Or he knows where to find it. And you guys know where to find me. I'm Cammy. Cammy and Ray everywhere. And thank you, Jordan, for coming on. I'm definitely going to have you back sometime next time we have an episode where I need some extra DC superpower knowledge to help me out. And yeah.
Hey, well, it was a blast. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone in the chat with your awesome questions, your awesome comments. If you have anything else you want me to talk about, anything you want me to cover, you can let me know as well. If you have any questions for me for Arrow Squad, the podcast that I do with Martin the Flash on the weekends, you can tweet me as well. You can go to arrowsquad.com and there's a feedback form there, and you can send me voicemail messages and you can send me all your theories and stuff, and we'll talk about it on the podcast as well. And thanks for joining me live, and we will see you time, same place, to talk about episode 4, which is entitled Reversal. We'll see you then. Bye, guys.